Day because words are powerful, and actually for me to say hello, we've grown up used to saying these things, used to using certain phrases, and hell is not cool or smooth, and so I don't really want to be saying like hello. So it's good day, great morning. And so hello to everyone out there. And I wanted to ask you today, are you freeing up your future? What are you doing to free up your future? So right now I am doing some things to free up and take steps to free up my future and my family's future and posterity and generations after me. And so I'm going to the bank as a creditor, as a trustee, doing what is in the best interest of the trust and the beneficiaries. And one of the things that trustees do is they lend out their credit. They lend their good credit out. And they also circulate. Give me 1 second. They circulate money. And so that's what I'm in the process of doing. What are you doing with your money? Are you circulating it? Are you circulating it? Blessings, good morning. Great day to you. Great day to you, Leah. And so the question today is, what are you doing to prepare for your future? What are you doing to free up your future for yourself and for your family? So what are some of the things that you're currently doing? What are some of the things that you're currently doing that will free up your future and that will free up the generations after you? What are some of the things that you can do? So you can list in the chat one of the things or some of the things that you've taken steps towards doing to free up your future. And so while you're thinking of that, or while you're typing that in the chat, I'm going to share one of the things that I've done, that my family has done to free up our future and to prepare for future generations to be able to benefit, right? That's one of the responsibilities of a trustee. One of the responsibilities of a trustee is to prepare ahead of time, to do things in advance. And so, a lot of us have this concept. So I know when I was coming up and in high school and things, they said, and it was pushed to do what? To continue your education, right? To continue your education. Okay, you said recouping tax credits. So what do you mean by that? What do you mean by recouping tax credits? Explain what you mean by that as I continue. Explain what you mean by that, Leah. So one of the things that we were told to do was to go to, higher educate, right? Go to a place of higher education, and so that you can, because it was always said, or statistically it was said that, hey, go to, a college, go to this college, that college, and those who go to college end up, statistically they said, making, having a greater income, having a larger income, right? And so being that we want to be responsible folks, and being that you want to, continue to do what's in the best interest of your own knowledge, right? To get the knowledge that you need so that you can do greater things and be a greater resource and add greater value to folks. What do? We went to, if you took that route, you went to college. And so I remember going to college, and I also remember that for those times, during those times, it was expensive. And so the price today probably wouldn't seem so expensive, but I know that back then it was expensive, at least for my family. And so we went to higher education. So that's one of the things we did. We said, this is how we're going to prepare in advance, right? And so as you learn, like what we really do, we act on those things that we know about currently. Does that sound correct? We act on things currently. We act on the knowledge that we have currently. And so, let's see what we say here. Education, continuing education. And so, that's what we want to do, right? We want to do whatever we can do to be the best that we can be, right, for ourselves and our family. And so that's the route that I took. I went to Eastern College in St. David's, Wayne, Pennsylvania, and after being there, and then also after going to community college, I said to myself, I want to work. And I could not then see myself in front of a computer or see myself, doing anything actually with a computer or technology or anything like that. And so, but now here we are in this era that we're in today, in the information technology age that we're in, where everything is online, right? And that people can make livings online or can make an extra income online. Back then, I certainly wasn't thinking to myself, yes, I can see myself sitting in front of a computer and doing things virtually or online for very long. I remember that just did not interest me at all. And so I wanted to get out of college. I wanted to get out from the books, get away from the books, and actually go do something. That's where my head was. I was like, I want to go do something. I want to go do something that I can, see a result. So I can see a result pretty shortly, right? In a pretty, short period of time. And so anyway, I got out of and stopped going to community college. And so then, things, let's say I got a job and I started working actually at where did I work? I worked for a clothing company, and then I had multiple different types of jobs as I was growing up. But the whole point is that, to get back to the point, was that what are we doing and what are you doing to prepare for your family's future, to free up your time, to free up your family's time, to put your family in a better position. And so one of the things that I learned that I could do was to be a trustee of an irrevocable trust. And so one of the rules, laws, and regulations of creditors, because you essentially become a creditor, and one of the things that happens is that you can loan out your good credit to other folks who have a trust, right? And also just putting your money out into the debtor system. There's the law that says what the creditor puts out into the debtor system, they're due that back yearly. And so, and so that's one of the things that I have utilized and started to utilize as a trustee of an irrevocable trust. That when we put our funds, when we put our credits, right, when we put our good credit out into the debtor system, which is who's using the debtor system right now? Does anybody know who uses what is a corporation or a company that receives debts, receives people's debts, receives this money, this fiat money that we're using, that we grew up hearing that this is money when it's actually debt. Does anybody know? Put it in the chat. Who receives people's debts on a daily basis? Who receives federal notes on a daily basis? Put it in the chat. What is the company, or what are the many companies that receive people's federal notes? Anybody? Put it in the chat if you know, or just guess. You might not know. Just guess. We're learning. This is a community for learning. This is for educational and informational purposes. Okay? I'm not an expert, but there you go. Leah, the bank. That's one of the ones. And so the bank receives what? 6 days a week? 6 days a week, the bank is receiving people's debts. They're receiving federal notes. They're receiving this fiat money. And so we all grew up in a debtor system, right? I don't know anyone who did not grow up in a debtor system. So banks receive these federal notes, right? And the Federal Reserve produces these notes, and they're a private company that has been given the power to and the leeway, if you will, to just produce this stuff that we call money out of thin air. And so one of the things that we can do as a creditor, right, is whenever you get a check, or whenever you get money, or however you raise money or raise capital, you put that money, that fiat, that fake currency, put that into a trust checking account. And once you put that into a trust checking account, because it's actually not you putting it in there, because you are the trustee and you are doing what is in the best interest of the trust and the fiduciaries, right? I'm sorry, and the beneficiaries, as you are a fiduciary, right? So you're putting your good credit and these funds into the bank. So you're loaning your credit to the bank, and whatever the creditor puts into the debtor system, they're due that back yearly. And so that's what we've been learning, and that's what we've been practicing, that we put our money into the trust checking account, and then at the end of the year we file the correct and proper paperwork, right, as the creditor. And then the bank is actually the debtor in that scenario. So one of the ways that I've prepared, and one of the ways that I'm freeing up my family's future and freeing up my future, is by being a trustee of an irrevocable trust, and also running a business and having partnerships and family involved in the business, where we can add value, create value for folks, create value for homeowners, create value for businesses by renovating their real estate. And then we take our funds and we deposit it into the trust, and then from there we work out of that trust. We work from that trust. So, I don't know about you guys, but this was something that I did not grow up hearing about or knowing about. You've heard about people like Rockefeller and Pierpont Morgan. How did they pass down their generational wealth? Does anybody know? Put in the chat how Rockefeller, who owned a trust, an oil trust, I believe it was, right? He was one of the main guys who ran a business, and it was an oil trust. And so, how did they pass down their wealth to generations and generations after them? So they would have passed down their trust. They would have passed down things, right, through trust, through a trust. And a trust is its own entity. So just like a business has its own EIN number, right? If you have a business, you business owners or entrepreneurs, and you know that the business has its own EIN number, and it got that EIN number, it received that EIN number from the IRS, right? And so in a similar way, the trust, right? It's its own entity. It has its own rules, laws, and regulations that govern, right, the trust. And so I just wanted to share with you guys today and get some and get you to thinking a little bit differently, and to see what are you guys doing? What are we doing to prepare for our future, prepare and free up our future for our family and for future generations after us, right? And that's one of the things that a trustee has in mind. They have in mind that, okay, it's not about me. Now, when we were, when we were younger, and folks who are normally, just coming up and things like that, what are they thinking about? They're thinking about me. They're thinking about, how can I benefit? Okay, we have to get out of that. We have to get out of that mentality and come into the thinking of, and the mentality of a second beneficiary. How can I be, as a trustee, you're really a secondary beneficiary. You're putting others before you. So I'm thinking about the generations after me. Isn't that correct? Aren't you thinking about the generations after you? Right? Aren't you thinking about the generations after you? All right, let's see what some people put in the chat here. So, are you thinking about the generations after you? All right, so I'm thinking about the generations after me. All right, and that's one of the things. That's one of the things that that's also biblical as well. In Proverbs, I believe it's 13:22, says that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just or the righteous. And one thing that that we see with Jonathan and David in the scripture is that Jonathan was thinking about his future. He was thinking about his posterity. He was thinking about those who would come after him, right? And so he had this relationship. He had this bond with David, and he knew, Jonathan knew that his father was not altogether there. He knew that his father was acting crazy, acting nuts, and so, and he wanted to kill David. He, Saul wanted to kill Jonathan's best friend, right, and covenant friend, who was David. And the interesting thing is that Saul's trying to kill David, and when David had the opportunity to kill Saul, right, he did not do that, because he knew that God had put him, even though this guy was not doing what he was supposed to be doing, right, and he was being affected. There's usually always something behind a physical thing, right? And what am I saying? There's always usually a spirit behind things that are going on. So just like when Peter in the New Testament was talking about, or Jesus was talking about how he was going to go to the cross and how he was going to be betrayed and put into the hand of sinners, and then but he would rise the third day, right? He would be given up, right? But then he would rise the third day. And Peter was like, you know, he was Peter was trying to thwart and offset what Jesus knew he had to do, and the reason that Jesus came, right, was to give his life. And so Peter's like, um, basically forbidding Jesus to go to the cross and forbidding Jesus to die. And Jesus had to rebuke him. He said, Satan, I rebuke you, I believe it was. And get behind me, Satan, is what he said. And so now, was he talking to Peter, or was he talking to something, an influence that was in the unseen realm? Was he talking about something that was in the unseen realm, or was he talking about Peter, who was right there before him? And so and so going back to Jonathan and David, right? Saul was being harassed or being even demonically affected, right? An evil spirit would come upon him, and he tried to kill David. But when David had the opportunity to kill Saul, he would not, because he understood that even though this guy was trying to come after his life, he knew that, you touch not my prophet and do my prophets no harm, right? And so David, even though he had the opportunity and chance to take the life of Saul, who was trying to take his life in that cave when he came upon that cave, and and he and you know Saul came into the cave and he was sleeping, and then David was in that same cave, and he could have taken his life, but he did rip off a piece of the garment of Saul and let him know later that, hey, God delivered me. God delivered you into my hands, and I could have taken your life, but I didn't. And so, um, the point also of that story is that Jonathan, in knowing that, his dad was going after David and trying to kill him, he was like, you know what? In the event that something happens to me, David, remember my family, remember my house. And and so um and so then later on, what happened? So there, um Jonathan is a great example of a trustee, and David is a great example of a co-trustee, because when Jonathan did pass, David did all that he could to find out, you know, who can I show kindness to? Who can I show favor to from the house of Saul? And he found Jonathan's son. And then he said, you know what? You're going to always have a seat at my table. You're going to always eat from my table. This is a king seeking out, right, the posterity of Jonathan, and then showing kindness and favor to him. And so, this is how trustees set up and prepare in advance to take care of their family. They set up other trustees and co-trustees to um, be able to look after their family when they pass, because it's really not a question of if, it's a question of when, right? Because it's appointed for us all once to die, and after that, right, the judgment. So that's what I had to share with you guys. What are you doing to free up your future? And so I got to get going here and get into another meeting. And I told you guys that I am involved in a financial IQ challenge all week. And so today's the last day. And um, prosperity is the prime objective. Or I'll say posterity is the prime objective, Leah. And And okay, so so thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, coming into this community. And for those who I gotta check the devils who try to come into the room. And so for those who you're free to share anything you want, and so on and so forth. But we come into this community, and we come into this time respecting others, um, telling where you're coming from, where you're hailing from, where are you from, what's your name, and where are you from, and don't come with any nonsense. We're not promoting nonsense, all right, on this channel. And so the desire is be to give and add value, right? And to keep your junk keep your junk at home, if you will. And when you come into a atmosphere, into someone else's domain, you respect that, right? And so if you can't respect yourself, then don't even show up on someone else's domain without showing respect and giving out love, because that's what we're about. We're about showing respect and giving out love and sharing the things that we're learning and sharing from the Bible. So if you're not about the Bible, then peace out. You know what I'm saying? So for all the rest of those, God bless you. Peace and grace to you. And I'll leave a takeaway later on about the Financial IQ Challenge today, guys. Be well and be blessed.